Hello, welcome to this review of Andromeda series... What's that? Oh, it's not Andromeda. Star Trek Discovery. Huh, could have fooled me. Hi, I'm Phil, welcome to my channel where I talk about all the geeky things that I enjoy and consume, such as Doctor Who, comic books, and, of course, Star Trek. The top of this video was mostly a light-hearted joke. We'll talk about it in a little bit, though. We've got a brand new series of Discovery, Series 3, or Season 3, if you're American. How you like to refer to it as seasons, not series. And, of course, I'm going to be here with weekly reviews. I'm a little bit late on this one because I was busy on the day the episode came out. What can I say? Plus, actually, it only comes out on a Friday morning in the UK. Unlike Lower Decks, we're actually getting it properly on Netflix. Obviously, Discovery episodes are a lot longer than Lower Decks episodes, and I found myself maybe sometimes rambling a bit too long on the Lower Decks reviews. And I definitely have done in some of the previous Discovery reviews. So in order to curtail that slightly, I'm altering up my formula of my Star Trek reviews a little bit. What I'm going to do is going to break it down into some general thoughts, then the things I really liked, then the things I didn't like, and then sort of summarize and maybe do a bit of predicting of the future at the end there. So hopefully under those categories, I might ramble a little bit less and less feel like I'm just going through the episode scene by scene. So what are my general thoughts of the first episode of Series 3, Season 3, whatever, season, series, you know what I'm talking about. It was okay. And I kind of... Baby crying. We'll wait till the baby's finished crying. Don't worry, my wife's down there with him. I think he stopped. I think there was a lot of interesting setup. I found the stuff we learnt about the universe and the world of this show, how the Federation has sort of not developed, gone backwards, and what state the universe is left in, all very interesting. And there's a few mysteries there that are quite interesting that will be interesting to follow up if they are followed up well. Obviously, mystery boxes... You know, lots of shows set up mysteries and never solve them, or lots of shows set up mysteries they don't really know the answer to. I have a feeling, though, that they know the answers to the mysteries they're setting up here, so it's not going to be too bad. It's not like they're completely playing it by ear. I thought the choice to only have the focus completely on Burnham for this episode and not involve any of the other regular cast which we've seen for the last 2 years was an interesting one. And I think it works to create the sort of sense of separation that we'll probably get explored more in the next couple of episodes. Because in my prediction section, I'm going to have a prediction there that will be relevant to that. But I did kind of feel like I was missing the rest of the Discovery crew a little bit. You know, I'm missing Tilly and Saru and the rest of them. And I kind of felt like... I mean, I'm kind of verging into some of my dislikes here, but I kind of felt like the episode felt a little empty because of that. And I get why they did it. I get that they wanted to focus on, you know, the immediate aftermath of Burnham going forward to the future and seeing what happened to her there, and that makes complete logical sense. But with what they did with it, I just think it was a little bit hollow. But there were individual scenes that I really liked out of this episode. And we'll get to those in my like sections. So there were moments of humour which I enjoyed. There were some very sort of pathos moments, and there were bits that sort of drew on my heartstrings a bit. Generally, I thought the opening and the closing of the episode were very strong, and I really like some of the characters that were introduced and the concepts that were introduced in the episode. So I'm interested to see where it can go from here. But I am also conscious and have in the back of my head that Season 2 started very strong from a story perspective. I think Season 2 was very strong throughout for characters. And what they did with the characters, Pike was absolutely amazing in Season 2. And, you know, what they did with all the rest of the characters in the ensemble was brilliant in Season 2 on a character level. But the story, the main plot thread, the main threat of the season... started off seeming really strong and then got weaker as we got to the end of it. And by the end of it, I think the plot element of it had unraveled somewhat. So even though I think there's some good setup here, I am a little bit cautious about what that, I don't want to say that means that it's going to be great, because I think season 2 started really strong in terms of the plot and then didn't quite end as strong. So there might be the similar thing here. And arguably, this isn't even starting out as strong. There's, some mysteries to be solved, but there's no sort of sign of any big hook yet. So what did I really like about this episode? Well, I really like the character of Book. New cast member, going to be a regular. I've seen him in things before. I saw him he was really good in Supergirl as well. He played Manchester Black in Supergirl. I've forgotten, I'm going to look up the actor's name. David Ajala. David Ajala is his name. I hope I pronounced that right. And yeah, I think he's a really good actor. I think he's got that kind of like slightly cocky, suave nature to him. Bit of a kind of he reminds me a lot of Idris Elba in that he's kind of like the way he holds himself, and the way he kind of his swagger and stuff as well, and his accent is very similar as well, and he's got that kind of like, I think he could be interesting to watch. I'm glad he's got his British accent and he hasn't been cajoled into doing an American one. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. I think he could be an interesting character, and they've set up some nice mysteries with him about his past, about his affiliation to various groups and things. So looking forward to finding out more about him. I thought the opening was pretty strong. We get a nice little tease moment which links back into the end as well, with this guy seemingly by himself, loner on some kind of ship or station, and he's got this box with the Starfleet Delta on it. We don't really know much. That's a nice hook there. We know we're going to see something about it later on, and it ties in nicely to the end of the episode where we see him again, and Book takes Burnham to him. And for me, one of the best scenes of the episode was at the end there, when he's talking about how he's not makes the admission that he's not a commissioned officer. And he's, just trying to keep this flame alive. His father was a commissioned officer. His grandfather was a commissioned officer. And there was just something about the way he spoke about that. I think the actor did a really good job there of conveying the sort of reserved pride in what he does. And when Burnham effectively gives him a commission, that generally left a lump in my throat, and I thought it was a really touching moment. And definitely the most, in terms of emotional beats of the episode, the best bit of the episode. We don't know much about this guy, why he's been there for his whole life just by himself, keeping this thing alive. Presumably it's family tradition. The state of the Federation as it stands, we don't know much about. I like the mysteries they set up there. We know a little bit more about the burn now. We just knew the name before, but we know it has to do with dilithium crystals seemingly exploding all at once. I would suspect that might be a deliberate thing, but it's a good mystery to have. Why did they all blow up at the same time? Was it a plot by somebody, or was it some kind of natural phenomenon? So there's some nice good bits there as well. We also got some nice little bits of humour throughout the episode. I absolutely loved the bit where Burnham was drugged and then she was absolutely high and like speaking at such a fast pace, and just loads of absolutely funny lines there, like, don't give any of this stuff to my red-headed friend because it just makes you talk really fast, and the implication is she already talks far too fast as it is. Let's not give her this because she'd be absolutely mental. Obviously they're talking about Tilly there. And just that whole scene, I think it shows that that the actress is a good actress. She is a good actress, and whatever you think about her character, whether or not you think she's been given the best material to work with, I think when she is given stuff, she can show she's got a range. She can do the emotional stuff. When she lands on that scene in the beginning and she finds out that their mission to save the future was a success, the pure elation on her face I really felt that, and I thought it was really well acted. And then you've got her doing these really good comedy scenes with great comedy timing there, and you've got her bit, whatever you think of how she's written, when she gets the opportunity, she proves that she does have range. I like the fact that they mentioned the temporal Cold War. Well, they mentioned the temporal war, which is an interesting distinction, because obviously in Enterprise it was always there was this thing referred to as the temporal Cold War, but they here refer to the temporal war, which presumably means that the Cold War escalated at some point into a full-scale temporal war, and we get to find out that that happened, and that is why there is no longer temporal technology, because presumably in the aftermath of that it's banned. How they police that, especially in a world without the Federation, is maybe a question that they need to answer still. But the fact that they at least referenced it, because I was really, really worried that they would jump to the future, and we know that through seeing time ships come from the future before, Federation time ships and things, and Daniels coming into Enterprise. So we've seen in both Voyager and Enterprise that the Federation of the future has time technology. So I'm glad they didn't completely ignore that. They've given us an explanation as to why that is no longer there. In terms of what I didn't like about this episode, I sort of have already broached this, but the story itself, you've got the framing device of Burnham arriving in the future and her dealing with that. But the actual plot of them getting captured and then his cargo and everything, it was I'm not going to say it's terrible, because I don't think it was terrible. It just felt a little bit hollow and a little bit not that interesting. It put them in some situations where we got some nice scenes, and actually another scene I missed that I quite liked, I wrote it down, a line I quite liked them saying was when Book says to Burnham, "This is going to go bad if you have to have the last word," because one of Burnham's character traits is that she tends to like to have the last word, and I like the fact that sort of in a meta way they reference that. So the plot gave us this opportunity to get some nice moments, but I don't think the plot itself was that engaging. But then maybe there wasn't time for it. I don't know. I'm a bit undecided about that. It was basically a setup episode, but then a lot of first episodes of seasons. I think the key will be in part 2. This is a 2-parter, so the fact that it's mostly set up isn't terrible, because we're getting a part 2 to this story. So let's see what they do with it next week and see if that maybe feels a bit more substantial. And I said I would come back to it. There are inevitably going to be Andromeda comparisons here. If you don't know what Andromeda is, it's another Gene Roddenberry concept that got turned into a TV show in the 90s. Late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. Where basically there's a galactic federation of some kind, it's called the Commonwealth in Andromeda, and it collapses and one particular starship gets somehow pushed into the future. But in that, it's just one guy from the original time period is the only person that goes with the ship. And he, spends 4 seasons trying to restore the Commonwealth. So there's definitely vibes of that here. I think there's enough different that it's not treading too much on that toes. Obviously there's a lot of similarities, but unlike that, there was no Commonwealth left in Andromeda. There seems to be some elements of the Federation left. You got a whole ship of crew coming through rather than just one person. I think there's probably going to be some crossover, but there will also be a lot of differences, and at the moment I'm not ready to call it as a major criticism of the program. And even if it does, programs borrow their own ideas or other ideas. All stories are recycled. I don't think it matters too much. As long as they do something different with the core concept, I don't mind them using the same core concept. Now, in terms of predictions, I'm going to make a prediction for next episode. We know that the Discovery crew, we're going to see the Discovery crew arrive from the past in the next episode, but I'm going to predict that there has been a massive time jump there. We're going to get a massive time jump between this episode and the next episode, and we're going to see that it's maybe another year or 2 years or something along that sort of span later that they arrive. And I think what would be probably a good thing to balance out this episode, and the fact that we just had Burnham in this episode, is that if next episode it is entirely focused on the Discovery crew and we don't yet have them meet back up. I think if we do that, that kind of balances out the very Burnham focused episode this episode, and then going on from there, maybe we could have a couple of episodes where they still haven't met back up yet, but we see what they're doing in parallel. That would be quite interesting for me. So we won't have more episodes where it's just all of one side of the story, Burnham or the Discovery. We will see two things going on, but and they can be thematically linked maybe. And then maybe in about 3 or 4 episodes time, Burnham finally finds the Discovery, or Discovery finds Burnham. That, I think, would be the most narratively pleasing way to do it, so it doesn't feel rushed that they find each other again. Other predictions, I think that the Dilithium thing was a deliberate ploy by some external force that has maybe not necessarily shown its hand yet, that they wanted to destabilize the universe to the point where they can then come in and invade, attack from maybe another galaxy, maybe another universe, something along those lines. But I definitely think it's a deliberate ploy by the by whoever wants to take advantage of a destabilized galactic situation. Now that could play in if you don't like politics in your Star Trek. I don't know why you wouldn't. It's always had it. But if you don't, then that's an interesting political analogy there, because you got things like Russian interference and things trying to destabilize and so I think there's some nice parallels they could draw there if they want to. I'm sure that will upset some people if they do, but I think it would make for some really interesting storytelling. So frankly, I don't mind that at all. And yeah, that's kind of what I thought of the first episode. I don't actually think this has started as strong as season 2 did, but season 2 deteriorated, so I'm hoping that this actually builds on what we've got so far and that it gets better throughout the season. Look, let me know what you thought in the comments below. I'm eager to hear what other people's thoughts are. What are your predictions of what's going to happen this season as well? All of that stuff. And I'll be back next week for reviewing the next episode of Star Trek Discovery. Also, check out the other stuff on my channel if it appeals. I do Doctor Who stuff as well, currently covering the multi-platform event Time Lord Victorious. So if you're interested in that, do go check that out as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.